What's up, folks? We're on a new episode of Talking Shizzle. This is the second episode we're recording of the year, and I'm really glad to be with you, Moby Hayat. How's it
Hello.
going today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You're down in Austin. How's the weather?
Yes.
I hear my Texas relatives say it's freezing, and I'm like, I'll show you freezing.
I mean, you know this. Like, if it's 30 for 2 days, the city panics. It's like
Oh, I
40 right
know.
now. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
not bad. What's it like over there?
I have snow all over my driveway right now. In fact,
Okay,
this is
okay.
the first day my kids finally went back to school. We
Oh,
had the
wow.
whole first week of school last week was like a
Okay.
snow day. It was a snow
Yeah.
week. Yeah. So
Nice.
it's
Okay.
nice. It's clear. It's not like a blizzard outside anymore. So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I'm excited to talk to you. You are an ad specialist, digital ads. We met at Drive
Yep.
late last year at Exit 5. I think I commented on really liking your mustache, and then we took it from there. Um,
Oh,
so,
a
um,
fun note. I just learned how to make it better, like as of a month
did
ago.
you?
So I'm trying to improve it. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's looking good. And I
I
also want to
appreciate it.
congratulate you. You got your citizenship, right? Like what, like
Yes.
4 months ago or something?
No, like legitimately, I think early December or late November, something like that.
That's awesome. Well,
I know, it's been
congratulations.
great.
You
I've
were
got the
posting about
flag
it
from the
online.
ceremony right there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
thank you.
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's talk ads. Let's go deep.
Let's
I
go.
want to get into this is what you do. This is really all you do is helping
Hmm.
companies improve their digital ads for better performance, conversion, everything like that. And I want to talk about LinkedIn today because
Hmm.
LinkedIn ads, it's one of those places. I mean, you certainly scroll LinkedIn and you see
Yeah,
people running ads, but as someone who has run ads, and I'm not the best at this, but we do it, and I
yeah,
have done it, but it feels like one of those, I don't know, black holes for B2B
yeah.
marketers, I think, when it comes to the ad space, because it can feel like, oh, it's really expensive and I'm not ever seeing results. So, how do you
Yeah.
get results for people on LinkedIn? I want to get into that today and then maybe
Hmm.
walk us through start to finish. And then I know you help your clients with advertising across other platforms too. So we'll get into a little bit of like when you might choose a certain platform like LinkedIn versus Meta
Yeah.
versus Google and the like. How's that sound?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. So LinkedIn, like pitch me on why I should be running LinkedIn ads. Let's start there.
Got it. LinkedIn is the weirdest platform to run ads on because the information for targeting is legitimately the best in the world. Because instead of Facebook or YouTube or TikTok trying to figure out what you like what are your interests, what do you do, on LinkedIn, people like you and I give as much information about to LinkedIn about what we do, what our skills are, everything else. So when you're thinking of B2B targeting, or very specific very specific professional targeting, it is the best in the world because it is all first party data. The real
Mhm.
draw of LinkedIn is not the people, really, because other people hang out on Instagram, the same people hang out on TikTok, they'll do other stuff. I'm on YouTube too much, but the if you want to target senior demand generation people, and I'm one of them, LinkedIn is the place to be because it allows you to target like crazy. That is the big value prop of LinkedIn.
And I agree with you. So, that being said, I think one of the questions that usually comes up around LinkedIn is budget. And I
Yeah.
think it's easy to sort of understand like, oh yeah, you can target what are some of the really specific ways you feel like you can target people? Because I know
Yeah.
there's like company settings, there's title settings, but like what are some of
Yeah.
those things just to give us a little bit more specificity?
Yeah. My favorite top layer is either a specific account list. Let's say there's 300 companies, you want to target 500 or even 1,000, whatever that number is. You can upload that and say, only get me in front of these people. That is one layer of targeting. You also have the option in that same layer of saying industry. So it can be very specific, like machinery shop owners, accounting firms, software for utilities. I don't think that's real, but utilities, let's say. But you can really hone down your targeting by industry or a lot of people go account list. From there, it's job title, which is very, very common, or function and seniority. So I could say, hey, I pick the industry of accounting, and it gives me all these people who work in accounting firms, not accounting functions, but accounting firms. And I can say, hey, everybody in operations and finance, give me people who are director, VP, but not C-suite. And I can be
Hmm.
that specific. And then I can have exclusions as well. But really, it's either industry or account list, and then you go job titles or job functions and seniority. There's other ways too, but those two layers I find to be best.
They work the best, yeah. Okay, so I like that you can get, let's call those professional demographics. So, like when you're
Yep.
thinking about your ICP, your ideal customer profile, being able to just lean into those specific professional
Mhm.
demographics is a huge selling point for running ads on LinkedIn. But again, what I think is a lot of times people get caught up on the budget on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. It's more expensive. So let's
Yeah.
talk about how is it more expensive? Like, just talk us through that.
Yeah. Hands down,
Talk
it's
to
more.
me like I'm 5 and I don't know anything about this.
Yeah. So I love it. So let's say you're running one campaign on LinkedIn to the same people and another campaign on Facebook to the same exact people. It's the same type of advertising campaign, brand awareness hypothetically. On Facebook, where Facebook would be like, okay, I'm going to charge you $6, or let's say $10 to show your ads 1,000 times, right? $6 CPM. LinkedIn is going to be like, oh, and I'm just kind of making this up, but it's like LinkedIn is going to say, oh, you have the privilege to advertise on our platform and use our data. You're going after this audience. We're going to charge you $50. So it's
Mm,
just 5 times more expensive. It could go up and down. It could be 30. It could be 60. Today I was having a conversation with somebody. The CPM was $70 to show your ads 1,000 times. But you
mhm.
also see some of those CPMs on Meta as well. The fact of the matter is, if you compare a campaign with the exact same settings on LinkedIn versus Facebook versus Instagram, which is the same, or TikTok or YouTube, LinkedIn is going to charge you the most because that's what they decide to do. It's not because they're special or they're like their economics work a different way. It's just they choose to charge us more because they're like, oh, you can afford it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because it's more B2B focused than B2C, do you think that is the case?
Yeah,
The why?
because you can't. So hypothetically, Adobe. Let's say I want to corner Adobe's market and I want to target everybody in the Adobe company. I can't go do that on Facebook and Instagram. How many people they say work at Adobe?
Yeah.
100, 500. On LinkedIn, I can do that. So LinkedIn just charges us more. However, there is a tool which allows you to do something similar. It's called MetaMatch for the people listening. You can
Mhm.
upload an account list or upload an industry list, and you can have sort of B2B targeting on Facebook, and it costs you $300 a month. So there's
Wait,
something new.
what?
Yep,
MetaMatch? I've literally not heard of that.
it's by
When did that come out?
metadata. It's
Okay.
old. It's old. It's
Oh.
just it's good. It's not the best, but it's really, really good if you're targeting maybe an industry or SIC code or sort of a general ICP like people in high tech companies. But
Mhm.
I think where LinkedIn wins is it's not just you can say to LinkedIn, like, hey, show these ads to these people with these demographics. Once you start running ads, LinkedIn shows you the data about exactly who's seeing the ads as well, like which titles are seeing the ads, which titles are clicking, what job, what job titles, what functions, what seniority
Mm.
levels, what companies. So you really get a sense of if you really want to target a specific group of people professionally, LinkedIn gives you as much data as you want to confirm that you're targeting the right people, and then they charge you more.
So you could justify the price uh, by thinking about quality versus like maybe fewer if your messaging is right, maybe fewer
If
impressions actually still yields just as good of, if not a better response. Maybe.
I would say that yes, I think the if you should go to LinkedIn and choose that as your option if you cannot reach them on Facebook and Instagram. If you can, great, go for that because you're gonna get 5 times the impressions versus LinkedIn. But most of the time for B2B, we just can't. We might be able to with MetaMatch, but it still doesn't give us the confidence of who is seeing these ads.
Yeah. I think what I have seen personally along my careers, when you are trying to sell like high end, like enterprise level, either software or services, and you try to run ads on Meta, you get a lot more website traffic. Maybe you get a lot of email addresses on your form fills, stuff like that. But it tends to not be actual qualified buyers, and so that's where I think this is it's probably a conversation of like, what are your goals? Who are you trying to get in front of? And quality versus quantity, more so than it is necessarily like, well, do you want to run expensive ads or cheap ads?
Exactly.
That's just my take on it.
Exactly. And it just comes down to the economics of the business, which you don't learn until after, which is what's your cost per lead? What's your cost per call? What's your cost per show and call? What's your close rate? 98% of businesses don't have that. And that's okay. You learn that over time. If you have some back of napkin math and you can decide with my close rate and a higher cost per lead, LinkedIn makes sense for me in terms of LTV, and it does, then fantastic. But it's really hard to know that. And you kind of just, you tend to go towards the cheaper option because you're like, that's better for me. But just like you said, sometimes many times the leads aren't the right ones.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about let's paint a scenario. Let's say you're just you're a small-ish SMB. Maybe you've got 100 people at the company. So you're not tiny, but you might have a marketing and sales department that doesn't have a huge budget, but you want to start testing things out on LinkedIn. And I'm asking about this scenario because I run into this scenario a lot with friends in the industry, with clients. Not everybody has $50,000 a month ad budgets. So the large majority of businesses that are still successful businesses, they don't have that sort of ad budget, but they might want to start running something on LinkedIn. What do you feel like is a good starting point to be able to legitimately test things on LinkedIn?
Yeah. The first question to answer is who are you targeting? And can you find those people easily on LinkedIn and not that easily on Facebook or Instagram? That's the first question. So in this scenario, can you make up a ICP for them and we'll walk through it?
Sure. Go do it for my company. Why not? No.
Okay. Who's your ICP? Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it for Creative Shizzle. That's the first thing that came into my mind because I'm curious about it. So we are a graphic design on subscription. We do, graphic design on affordable subscriptions, kind of like a design pickle. And we target, marketing teams, I would say, SMBs, startups, B2B tech marketers is usually a good sort of a client for us.
Got it. Perfect. How much do you charge a month? And you can give me a made-up number for this podcast?
Yeah.
And also lifetime value?
We have plans that start at $599 a month all the way up to, and those are just for graphic design. And then we have plans that go up to $3,500 a month for graphic design plus copywriting support. Those are like kind of our core plans. We do custom things too, but that's our core.
Sweet. That's very helpful. So the first question I would ask would actually not be a paid ads question, but a strategy question, which is you mentioned tech marketers, SMB startups. Tech marketers, when I think of that, that's on LinkedIn. You can't really find those people on Facebook or Instagram. But the question becomes is, how confident are you that you do not want to work with the people, how confident are you that you do not want to work with small business owners and random marketers and you want to work with tech marketers?
Oh, we work with other small business owners too. So I won't say that we only want to work with tech marketers. And that's where I think this gets interesting and why I'm like, tell me what to do. Because sometimes we have small business owners who are We helped a brand last year that was an Etsy store and a one woman shop that blew up on Etsy. And now she
Yeah,
needs marketing support and design support.
got it.
So those are cases where like maybe that person is on Instagram and Facebook more so than LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I think particularly for our business, it's a little bit of a mix.
And to buy, do people usually go through a call process?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So in that case, I would actually test, and I know this is going somewhere. I would actually test Facebook and Instagram first for 2 months, then try LinkedIn. Here's why.
Okay.
So if you're looking at that, and I'm going to make this up, which is you're looking at a 3 month time period to decide if a platform is right for you or not. The strategy that's going to run on Facebook versus LinkedIn might be very different. On Facebook, you're going to do lead gen. Let's go. Let's spend 2K a month and test that out. On LinkedIn, there's going to be some testing of lead gen versus brand awareness. So let's take Facebook, for example. What I would do is set up a data stream which allows you to measure how many clicks do you get, how many of them turn into leads, so your opt-in conversion rate, how many of those leads turn into a meeting, how many of those how many of those meetings show up, and how many of them actually turn into a sale. Hypothetically, if you have a $2,000 a month budget on Meta, you can get 30 reps of that lead, of that
Mm.
shown appointments, of no-show appointments, to get a bunch of data to decide, is this even worth it? And from there, you
Mhm.
might see that, oh, I get a lead for $120. I get a booked appointment for $250, and I get a shown appointment for $300. And depending on your close rate, and honestly, your ability to take a bunch of calls that might not show up, you can decide that, hey, for every, I'm just going to make this up, for every $800 we spend on ads, we get a closed customer that remains with us for 4 months.
Mhm.
That's pretty legit. And I share this not to
Mhm.
make this up. In 2023, a founder that I started working with later on made 40K by themselves. And then I started working with them with an ops person in 2024, and we did Meta ads. And I think we haven't spent a lot, 72K or 84. He went from 40K to 1.13 million. And
Hmm.
the process is the exact same, where they just shove leads in the process, and then they measure everything. So that would be test number one. But I can go over
Mhm.
LinkedIn as well. So I want to pause here.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And let's talk about LinkedIn. And if it helps, we can even paint like a different scenario for LinkedIn. So maybe like a different kind of business that you feel like is more prime for LinkedIn. Because I'm with you. I actually think like for our business, testing on Meta makes more sense for right
Yeah.
now, probably. At least like to test. And a lot of times I tell clients that too, if they're talking about advertising,
Yeah.
and they're just starting, like, well, like use that as your testing ground. Would you kind
Yeah.
of agree with that in most scenarios?
Yeah. I think you lose money before you make money on ads.
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
have to
I think
get
so
through it.
too. So
Um,
let's paint a different picture as we talk about LinkedIn and how to approach LinkedIn because I think it is a different audience and different
yeah.
types of businesses might want to actually advertise, spend their ad budget there. So let's talk about a high-end consultancy
Got
who
it. Okay.
is, their average deal size, is 100 to $150,000, and they're only going after big time enterprise businesses to bring
Got it.
in whatever their consulting service is, right? Like managed consulting. How would you approach LinkedIn for a company like that?
First would be building that audience size through an account list or an industry list. And the second layer would be job titles or job functions. And I would just stress test with the leadership team, like, are you sure? Is this the
Mhm.
market bet on for 6 months? That would be first. Um, After that, I would look at what messaging should we test in multiple sprints that allows us to learn what this audience cares about. So, for example, in phase
Mhm.
one, which might be 2 months of ads, maybe even 1 month, we test 3, 4. I wouldn't call it offers because at 100K, you're not making offers. I will do this. We're talking more about
Yeah.
value props and how you help and the problems you solve. So I would pick 3 messaging points and make a total of 9 ads. 3 per messaging point. So I know who it is. And the next step is I know what we want to test. From there, we decide, okay, what kind of campaign do we want to run? On LinkedIn, there's this big debate. You've seen this, lead gen versus demand gen. And the thing with lead gen is you can legitimately get leads for sub $100 on LinkedIn. But the problem is always the same as it is on Facebook, which is people, the conversion from a lead to a meeting, especially a shown meeting and opportunity, is way low. So you could say, let me decide to test lead gen for 2 months, or even on the side, I can do that. And let me see how much I get a lead for and what it costs me to have a shown meeting. That might work, but it's going to be a test. Most likely for a high-end consultancy, you're looking at brand awareness and really educating this market about what you do, the problems you solve, and how you solve them. So in the case of this example, I'll just go, let's do brand awareness, which is instead of going to LinkedIn and whenever you choose an objective, you choose lead gen, you just go brand awareness. And how that campaign works is if you have 100K audience, what lead gen will do is, let's say you spend 5K a month on that. You'll get in front of 10,000 people and you will see if you get leads. If you do brand awareness, LinkedIn charges you a fraction of the cost. Instead of $100 CPM, it'll be $50. So with the same amount of money, you're getting in front of 20,000 people, but the campaigns aren't optimized for clicks or leads. They're optimized for getting in front of as many people as much as possible. And what you're betting on is the audience that you've chosen, the messaging points that you're testing and you will learn from. Once I get this in front of my audience, over time, they will go ahead and decide that whenever they're in a market, my organization is the one to solve the problem. I'll pause there because that's a lot. And I can keep talking about this for 17 hours.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, the brand awareness campaign. And I like that you called out that it's like they actually charge different rates for that.
Yep.
And that's probably, it makes sense to me that that's the better place to start. Let's run one more scenario because this is fun. Okay, so that was the high-end consultancy. And then I want to go back to a thought I have about the thing we said about my business. So we did the high-end consultancy on LinkedIn. Now let's talk about you are a SaaS, like you are Gong, something like that. How would you approach LinkedIn ads if you were running Gong's LinkedIn ads?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'm thinking of another SaaS product that I did consult on, and they were spending 70K, 80K a month, easy. They were doing more ABM. I won't talk about ABM because I'm not the best person for it. Sometimes I feel like I understand it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't get it. But let's not talk about ABM.
It's a type of marketing.
It's a type of marketing, yeah. Like I've consulted on it and it worked, but I'm like, okay. So what I would think about is, are there multiple audiences or is there one audience? For this example, I'll say there's 2 audiences. One is more C-suite, and I'm just making this up because I don't know a ton about Gong. I see them all the time, but they're
just everywhere. I know I see their name too much,
Exactly.
Or maybe not, maybe a lot. That's why their marketing is working.
It is. So they've got C-suite and directors and managers. I will build those audiences, and I would really, really have separate messaging for it. If possible, interviewing some of your customers in each segment, C-suite and directors, managers would be very helpful because we can then mine the transcripts for pain points and call outs that we can reasonably run ads on and measure if people vote that they resonate with their clicks or not. So if I have 2 audiences, I'd love to do some kind of customer interviews if I can. But from those customer interviews or even their positioning work, write the ads, very simple. They don't have to be video. Write the copy. And the big thing that I'm looking for is 3 things. Let's say I start running these ads. Number one, how much of the audience am I reaching, and am I at the right budget? So LinkedIn has now a metric called audience penetration, and it tells
Mm-hmm.
you out of the audience that you've selected, you're reaching 10%, 20%, 25. The sweet spot that I've seen is 25%. If you're
Mm-hmm.
consistently reaching 25% of your audience and you're reaching them at a frequency of 5 a month, you're spending the right amount. No need to spend anymore. I would do that. Number two, I would look very quickly at click-through rate to see, hey, what is getting more traction in terms of messaging, and double down on that more and more and more every single phase. So I learned that A versus B wins, and let me double down on B in phase 2 messaging and have B1 versus B2 and repeat that. The third thing I would look at is the audience that I identified as who we want to target. Are we still seeing the right people? Are the right people seeing our ads? So I will look at titles. I'll look at job functions, seniority, and just fine tune them, because LinkedIn will show you 100 titles, and I just look at the first 50 of who's seeing our ads. Sorry, when you're running ads, LinkedIn shows you 30. I would look at the 30 and define if there's any job titles I need to take out. And lastly, once I'm like, okay, things are working for brand awareness and demand gen, what's driving conversions, if any? Sometimes you can look at your HubSpot and look at self-report attribution, like questions like, how did you hear about us? To see, are people saying they hear about LinkedIn? People don't usually do that. But the big metric for success, I can look at 2 data points. Number one, am I getting any on-platform conversions that people clicked on LinkedIn and they eventually converted? Number two, once I started advertising, did I see an incremental increase in leads 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line from the ISP that I'm targeting? Attribution of LinkedIn is horrible. Like I've had legitimately website submissions, which are not spam, go from double in a year for a client. And when we look at attribution on LinkedIn, I'm like, I think it's working because that's the only thing we've been doing. But it's so hard without a proper CRM like HubSpot or without really detailed targeting. So that's how I would approach it. Build out the messaging, test out the messaging, and then look at numbers like CTR, look at the job title demographics, and really trying to understand, are we seeing a lift in leads over time?
Okay. And then probably having the right like tracking codes and stuff like that in place, so you can do your best to attribute, as best as you can. It's hard, everybody. I mean, like there's a lot you can do with marketing reporting and tracking, a lot, but there's also still a lot of gaps and a lot of places where it's like sometimes it's just hard to know exactly why. And I also think that happens to do with, I think it truly does take someone many, 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 many times of seeing you before they buy. So, it's like if you're doing a good job, it's likely that people are seeing you in a lot of places. And like at that point, who really knows, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I've bought over time, so platforms that I purchased for our company to run, and seen them on Instagram and LinkedIn and, all over the place. I don't really know. And then heard people talking about them. At some point, just seemed like a good idea. So I think that's something important for marketers to keep in mind when they're thinking about ads and reporting and everything like that. But that's like a whole nother topic. So
it is.
Let's talk about, I kind of want to wrap it up with getting into identifying those different audiences and then different messages, and how you might want to think about spreading a budget across different platforms. Because let's go back to my example. Okay, so I've definitely got a B2B marketer audience. That's one. But I've got those small business owners too that are on Instagram. Maybe I should be running some YouTube ads, like our business. I could see how testing some things across platforms could help. And there's probably a lot of businesses like that have sort of audiences in a few different places. So how might you go about putting together a plan for a small business like mine for digital advertising across a few channels.
Got it. So if I were to look at what actually drives high intent leads, not just leads, because there's a big difference. What drives high intent leads and thus sales opportunities and thus revenue. And I also look at that's more long term. Like, what's the best thing we can do over a year? But also for small business, you kind of need to prove something works, because you're not going to, a small business is not going to spend money on month 4 if it's not making money before.
Right.
So if I were to think of that, and let's say I've got a $5,000 a month budget.
And I think that's a good average size to let's use that $5,000 a month, because I think that's where a lot of marketing teams probably actually sit.
Agree. So I'll actually divide that in half for very different purposes. So with 2,500, and I won't talk about Google Ads because that's a whole different thing, but I'll talk about Meta versus LinkedIn. On Meta, I would spend $2,500, and I would do it with the express purpose of getting leads from a broader audience and really fine-tuning my lead to close process, which is really trying to figure out out of the leads that we get, how many of them turn into meetings, how many turn into shown meetings, what's my conversion rate, what's my sales close rate, all of that, and really stress test it. Because the great thing about Meta is you can get a lot of leads, but you have to stress yourself out to find the high intent ones. But that process makes your sales process really effective if you just shoulder to it. So I would spend $2,500 on Meta to get some sales and also build my robust sales process. And I would also portion off $2,500 on LinkedIn and say, I'm going to play the long game here, which is I'm going to run brand awareness ads to an audience of 40,000 people, maybe even less. And I know that if I get a few leads, which are very high intent because you're doing brand awareness, they have to reach out to you over time. That if I spend $30,000 in a year and I get, I'm just making this number up, 6 closes, I've tripled my ROI. And I'm waiting on the long game because these people are not ready to buy right now. It's unlikely that they will be. So I would portion it off there. One more short term, let's prove advertising works. And let's make some money on Facebook by going through the pain of effort. And then on LinkedIn, let's prove advertising works over time and going through the process by paying in time versus effort.
Okay. What about YouTube? That one's not been discussed at all. Is that, you feel like that's like Google? It's like it's a whole different thing?
I'm not extremely familiar with YouTube, to be honest. I know it works. I think it's exceptional for brand. But I think it's the demand gen play over there too. So if you were like YouTube, I would probably put $2,000 in Facebook, $1,500 in LinkedIn, and $1,500 in YouTube.
Okay.
I would still go Facebook pretty heavily.
Facebook heavy. Okay. I think that's good.
Depends. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. It always depends, but I think it's nice to run these different scenarios for different types of plays that we know are out there, because I know you probably work with all different types of companies that you run ads for. And so you probably see all sorts of different, it depends scenarios. And I know I do too. In our work as a branding and creative agency, we get these types of questions all the time. And so I really appreciate kind of like digging deep into these different, scenarios, different. And people always want to talk budget. They want to know budget, especially when we're talking about the small businesses and SMBs out there. Not everybody has that $70,000 a month ad budget, right? So most people don't. So I like talking about topics for marketing where it's like most people aren't gong. So let's talk about how most businesses can take advantage of these platforms and really think through like what is within their purview, what is within their reach,
Agree. I'll add one last thing.
Go for it.
You're thinking about it depends. Absolutely. This year with a freelance client, we're looking to spend $500,000 in ads. And 4 months ago, once the program was starting to work, they asked me, should we do LinkedIn? I was like, no, the economics of your business do not work for LinkedIn. And sometimes that's the case where you find and test. They've done TikTok, they've done Reddit, they've done Meta, they've done Google. I told them, don't do LinkedIn. You really have to test or really understand the platform before making the best decision for you. And sometimes you lose some money, but you learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. There is one other thing I want to ask you about because I've noticed it just recently. You know how on Facebook you can go, and this has been around for a while on Facebook, where you can go and you can like boost a post.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't think that's the best way to set up an ad campaign on Meta, but it's highly convenient, and a lot of people do that because it's so easy to click that boost button.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn now has these ads where I'm noticing more of them. They look like organic content, but they're ads.
Mhm.
And to me, I'm just trying to connect some dots. So it feels a little bit more like, oh, is that a situation on LinkedIn now where you can like boost a post? What do you see? Or do you have to go actually set it up as a separate ad campaign and just make it look like an organic post when you're setting up the campaign?
Great question. So those are thought leadership ads on LinkedIn. And
Leadership,
on
okay.
Instagram, you have two options now. One is you can go on your app and just decide boost this through a few options, or you can even go to Ads Manager on the back end and define the whole campaign and then slot in your organic posts. That's how LinkedIn thought leadership ads work. You go on LinkedIn Ad Manager, you don't go to your profile, you go into Ad Manager, you set up your campaign just like a normal campaign. And instead of saying, I want to create my own ads, you just say, help me select ads from my profile or from profiles that have approved me to select them. So if I, Moby, have my top 20 LinkedIn posts from last year, and I know that that's awesome to help nurture and create awareness with my ICP, I can just slot those in. And the goal really is awareness and thought leadership with those ads.
So would you treat those kind of similarly to those brand awareness ads? Let's say you're that like high level, like enterprise consultancy, that might be a play that you want to do with like kind of that brand awareness, thought leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I've just been seeing those more recently. Is that a newer thing? Or have they been around for a while?
Catching up, but it's only, I think it was mid-year. I don't think it was mid-year last year. It might have been mid-year in 2023, maybe. But I know it's relatively recent.
Yeah, I've just more within the last several months started seeing them and be thinking that they were organic posts at first, not noticing the little promoted or sponsored label. And then one day saw it and was like, oh, that's an ad.
Yeah.
That's different. So, okay, cool. Well, anything you would leave our audience with, kind of closing statements on running online digital ads?
Yeah. I think the last thing would be you lose money before you make money. There has not been a case, and I'm thinking about the most best performing ad campaigns I've been on LinkedIn, on Meta. It takes 2-3 months and you have to grit it out, because at the end of the day, advertising is just telling more people what you do, and how can that not work? You just have to figure out the mechanics of it, which is the hard part. Telling more people in your target market what you do will always work. It's just, does it make sense for you, and how much are you spending, and what's your strategy, and what platform? That's the hard part.
Let me end with one final fun question.
Yeah.
What is the best performing ad campaign you've ever run on the lowest budget?
Oh, that's a good question.
Can you think of one?
Yeah. We were spending $1,500 a month. And that was for a sort of B2B real estate, B2B audience, like realtors on Meta. And we tested. I didn't know much about the space, so all I did was I looked at their website and copy pasted their headings into different ads, and maybe had 3 headings and made 3 variations of ads. So I had 9 ads in total, and I put some money on it. In 2 months, we learned what sort of headline worked, and I turned everything else off except that headline and made 8 more ads into it, and it started to work. And that's the campaign we're actually going to spend $500,000 on this year, provided nothing breaks. And we got super lucky. But that worked out surprisingly well. And I won't say it's magic. It's skill, but also luck, right? I won't lie about that.
Yeah, sometimes something just hits and you don't really know why, and it just does.
I still don't know why, but we're gonna keep putting money into it.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah.
Well, Moby, it's been awesome talking to you. If people want to follow you online, get in touch, or maybe hire you to help them with their ads, what's the best way to find you and get in touch?
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Thank you for the questions. I'm on LinkedIn, Moby Hayat, Hayat, Moby like the singer, or like Moby Dick, if you read that book. I have not. Yeah.
I haven't either, no. But I've heard of the singer and I've heard of the book. Just never.
Exactly.
I've never really listened to the musician much or read the book. So
he's not that great.
No, yeah. I mean, I have heard him, but maybe it never struck me. But the book apparently is fantastic. It's a great piece of literature.
I've also heard it's terribly boring. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe it's like a book you should read just so you can be like, I've read that book.
I probably should.
Me too, especially since your name is Moby. You really should read it.
I know.
Well, this has been fun, and thanks everyone for listening. I hope that it helps you get a little bit more, knowledge if you're thinking about running online ads, or you're already running online ads and you're thinking about how to tweak or better optimize your stuff. And if you ever need creative work, go to creativeshizzle.com, and we will see you on the next episode of Talking Shizzle.
Thank you, Taylor.